Thank you, thank you. Well, your first question was the protest. I think for the sake of national dignity, we must protest. If we remain silent, the world might think that we are acquiescing to the aggressiveness of China, their deployment of these weapons in our area. Of course, the question now is, would that have some effect? Maybe not. But if we remain silent, definitely nothing would happen. But if we file a diplomatic protest, maybe something might happen, because other countries might come to our support, might support us. And as I said, lawfare is designed to embarrass the bigger country by an avalanche by a preponderance of law in our favor as a small country. So to me, very important is to file a diplomatic protest. On the question on the Indian Ocean, well, in the case of India, again, we're talking of geopolitics there. Pakistan is in the picture. A lot of things are happening there, like the Gwadar port. This is a major port project under the Belt and Road Initiative of China. That's very close to the Persian Gulf. Some are saying that this might be an alternate port for the oil flow of of China. They're negotiating with Myanmar. They're talking with Maldives. That's China, but India is countering also with those deployments that I mentioned, because they look at the Indian Ocean as their sphere of interest, as their sphere of control, and they would like it to remain their sphere. But the other parties are also participating. A few months ago, there was a big Malabar exercise, and in this particular, the Malabar for about 18 years was a naval exercise between the Indian Navy and the US Navy. 2 years ago, Japan participated. The first one was off Japan, and then the second one was in the Bay of Bengal area, the Nicobar area. So now you have the presence of the three countries, Japan, and no less than the Izumo participated in that exercise. This is the big helicopter carrier of Japan, and one aircraft carrier of India, and one aircraft carrier of the US. So everybody's going to be there. Australia wants to participate, but I understand India is resisting a little because they have some kinks that they would like to settle with Australia. So we're talking of geo-strategic positioning here, involving very big powers. Thank you. Commodore?
Thank you, sir, for your very informative presentation. Sir, I am from Bangladesh.
Yeah, Bangladesh, thank you.
Sir, as I have seen that as a National Security Advisor from 2001, this is 17 years back. And before that also in 1970, you have seen first the Scarborough Island. So it took a long time, and you are always vocal about these islands. So what was the dilemma from the government side or the Philippine authority for not looking after these islands as a military, as an advisor, security advisor? Why it was delayed for your point? And my second part of the question is that modernization of the Philippine armed forces. This is very important, but this is also going on for last couple of years. And as you see from the security point of view, the armed forces of the Philippines should be more powerful in air force and naval development than the army, because these countries do not have any land border with any other countries. So with this modernization of armed forces, then should it be reviewed in this aspect? Thank you, sir.
Yes, thank you, Commodore. You're very correct. There seems to be some kind of a disconnect between the threats we're facing with how we are preparing with those threats. But then, of course, there's always a debate inside the Philippines, because for so many years, we were focused on internal security. We had the NPA, the New People's Army. We had the secessionist movement in Mindanao. Then we have the other problems. You know, when the NPA, you're talking of problems in Luzon, in Visayas, in Bicol, in Mindanao, all over. And that required focus on internal security, army, that dominated the allocation of resources as far as the military was concerned. And for so many years, we did not see any external threat. As I said, 1970, we were in the practice area. There was no challenge until 20 years after, when China all of a sudden surfaced and constructed their temporary quote-unquote shelter in the Visip area, the one I showed in the picture. But for some reason, the Chinese government was able to sweet-talk our government into believing that was indeed a temporary shelter. When they constructed the permanent structures in 1999 up to 2000, I stood up in Congress and condemned this. But again, this was met with a very vibrant exchange of diplomatic notes, and somehow they were able to convince that not to worry. In 1999, December 1999, I stood up in Congress and I said the next target, China's next target, is Scarborough Shoal. That is on record. Because I could see, as a Navy man, I could see the pattern, their movement coming from the southwest, going up slowly up north with Mississippi, Fiery Cross Reef, and then even talking about claiming the reef bank, I could see that they were already targeting Scarborough Shoal. Nobody believed me. I was accused of being an alarmist at that time, and then 2012 it happened. There was some debate also about how to prepare for this, but there were some people who were able to prepare, say that let's give the economy priority, because if we overspend on defense, we will underspend on the economy. So let's develop the economy, and with a strong economy, we will end up with a strong defense. But for how long? That was the problem. So especially from 1986, 1990, somehow the Navy was not attended to. Air Force was not attended to. I was one of the authors of the AFP modernization program, but this was not followed with an aggressive acquisition program of big ticket items, precisely because of that debate on the so-called guns and butter debate, guns or plowshare. You know, the old Samuelson economic debate. Is a country going to invest in plowshares, agriculture, or guns for defense? And those in favor of plowshares somehow prevailed. But had we followed a systematic way of adding, even bit by bit, to the Navy, to the Air Force, then probably, as of now, we're talking of 1995 when China took the initiative, that's more than how many years ago? 23 years ago. If every year we had just a little addition to our defense capability, maybe a little frigate here, a little corvette here, some missiles there, some planes there, we could easily have an Air Force of at least maybe 40 fighter planes and a Navy of maybe at least a dozen good frigates, even destroyers. Something like what Singapore has. Singapore has about 100 multi-role fighters, so you have to think twice before you tangle with Singapore. Vietnam has 450 anti-ship cruise missiles. If you are a destroyer commander, you would be thinking of those anti-ship cruise missiles. You wouldn't want to be inside their killing zones. We had a plan to acquire shore-based missiles about 3 years ago during the previous administration, but somehow the Chief of Staff changed that to go back to internal security. You know, if we have 100 anti-ship cruise missiles guarding our exclusive economic zone, the other side would think twice. So if I were a Navy commander of a destroyer or frigate, I'd think of that anti-ship cruise missile that would hit me. Thank you for the contribution. I fully agree. But it's not too late for that. I think we have the economy to be able to sustain a systematic upgrading program. You know, I've always been saying the reason we are weak militarily is because that has been our choice. We could have chosen to be strong militarily. We are the second largest in population in ASEAN, 105 million. We have a very respectable economy also, a growing economy. Thank you.
Okay, the next 3 questions will be raised by Noli Ermitaño from the SEC, Colonel Pangantunan from the Army, and Colonel Molina also from the Army. In that order.
Sir, good morning. Sir,
Good morning.
I came to understand that the U.S. and its allies in the quadrilateral security arrangement are employing the strategic constraint policy against China. The U.S. and its allies in the quadrilateral security arrangement.
By the way, the quadrilateral is not yet a security arrangement,
but
something like that.
It's
Yeah.
quasi-true or something. In any case, sir, I understand they are already employing a strategic constraint policy against China. Now, my question, sir, to you, sir, is this. Do you think it would be wise for the Philippines to do at least 2 things, at the very least, no, in view of the pursuit of this strategic constraint policy against China? One, don't you think the Philippines should study how it could leverage this strategic constraint policy to its advantage? And second, don't you think it's about time for the Philippines to really engage earnestly in contingency planning for in the event of an armed conflict and position ourselves accordingly? I'm not talking about modernization in the name of ornamentation, sir. I'm talking about modernization in preparation for actual conflict, like what Vietnam and the others are doing.
Yeah. Well, yes, we have to leverage. Yeah, that's a very good word. In fact, if you look at the quadrilateral alliance, technically it's not an alliance. It's not a security alliance, but it's already an alliance as far as the 3 partners are concerned: Japan, US, and Australia. Because Japan and Australia are both treaty allies of the US. In the case of India, because of Malabar, this is a 20-year annual exercise, US and India have been conducting this naval exercise for 20 years already. And then, of course, for the past 2 years, Japan entered the picture. So there's already an infrastructure of a security arrangement among the 4, already operational, that conducted security and military and naval exercises already. And the Philippines is a treaty ally of the United States. Some people are saying that maybe Vietnam might enter the picture. There's some speculation. Vietnam might do it because it would be in their national interest. And in the case of this quadrilateral, they would intervene if it is in their national interest, not because of Philippine interest, but their national interest. I think we should always stress that. Now, it would be good if their national interest would be congruent to our national interest. Now, we have a mutual defense treaty with the U.S. Some people are saying it's a little vague. It's not as ironclad as the treaty with Japan, but it's there. What does it say? In case of an attack on our metropolitan territory, Luzon, Visayas, Mindanao, we can invoke the treaty. However, the Spratlys, the South China Sea are not part of the metropolitan territory. So it cannot be involved.